Stallone walked into a broken gym in Newark with no cameras, no crew, just a towel and his old gloves. What happened next shook the boxing world and touched millions online. But before we dive in, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. He was just a kid, but something in his eyes told me he'd already survived more fights than I ever did. It was a gray Tuesday morning in Newark, New Jersey. The kind of day where even the air felt tired. The streets were still waking up, dew resting on cracked sidewalks, trash cans lined up like soldiers from a long-forgotten war. Life here had grit. You could smell it in the bus fumes, hear it in the neighbors arguing 2 doors down, feel it in the rhythm of sneakers scraping a cracked basketball court across the street. Stallone walked alone, wearing a black hoodie, sunglasses, and the weight of years only visible to those who looked close enough. No entourage, no announcements, just him and the quiet. To most, he was a legend. A name carved in the stone of Hollywood, a symbol of resilience. But to Sylvester, at 78, he was just a man searching for something real again, something raw, something he hadn't felt since the first time someone called him Rocky. The gym door creaked open. Inside, the familiar smell of sweat, blood, and old leather gloves hit him like a memory he didn't know he'd missed. Jesus, he muttered under his breath. Still smells like 1982. Henry, the gym owner and retired fighter, was in the back, taping a kid's hand with the kind of care only a man with broken knuckles could give. He didn't notice Stallone at first. Then he turned, froze. No way. Way, Stallone smiled. They hugged without words. The gym wasn't fancy, it was honest. Mats duct-taped at the edges, ropes frayed from years of restless sparring. A punching bag duct-taped so many times it looked like it had lived 9 lives. Posters of old fights on the walls, some yellowed by time, others curled at the corners like they were trying to escape. And then, there was the mural. Painted on the far wall, behind the weights, was a faded image of Rocky Balboa. Gloves up, eyes burning with hope. Stallone looked at it for a long moment, then stepped forward and placed his palm gently on the chest of the painted figure. "That kid still owes me rent," he said, half smiling. It was then that he heard it. The dull rhythm of fists against pads. Sharp, precise, but filled with something off. A young man, no more than 19, was in the ring, working drills with a partner. Fast hands, good footwork. But his shoulders sagged with every punch, like each jab was dragging him deeper into himself. Malik Carter. Henry noticed Stallone watching. "That's Malik," he said. "Talented. Real talented. But he's got more ghosts than gloves." Stallone nodded, but his eyes stayed fixed. The round ended. Malik sat on a milk crate in the corner, sweat dripping from his temples, eyes locked on the floor like it had just betrayed him. Henry walked over and said something, but Malik barely responded. "Kid's checked out," Henry muttered. "Keeps saying he ain't cut out for this. Says the world doesn't need another fighter. Maybe he doesn't need the world." Stallone said softly. "Maybe he just needs someone to see him." The next hour went on like clockwork. People moved around Stallone, whispering, sneaking glances, pretending not to stare, but he wasn't there to be seen. He was there to see. Jaden, a 15-year-old with a cracked iPhone and dreams of going viral, started recording discreetly. At first it was for clout. "Yo, Sly Stallone at the gym." But as he zoomed in, he realized something else was happening. Something real. Malik got up to leave. Gloves half untied, spirit all the way unstrapped. That's when Stallone moved. He walked toward the kid, quiet, steady, took off his hoodie, slid on his old leather gloves, cracked and worn, but still deadly. "You ever sparred a dinosaur?" he said, grinning. Malik blinked, confused, maybe a little annoyed. "No?" "Good, 'cause this one still bites." The gym went silent. Henry tried to intervene. "Sly, you sure? I mean, you ain't..." But Stallone just raised a glove. 3 rounds, light, unless he gets cocky. Malik didn't know whether to laugh or walk out. But something about the way Stallone looked at him, not like a fan, not like a coach, but like a man who'd been there, made him nod. They stepped into the ring. Jaden's hands shook as he held the phone steady. The bell rang. At first it was playful. Light jabs, testing distance. Stallone circled slow, absorbing Malik's speed. But then, halfway through the round, something shifted. Malik threw a hard right, faster than expected, and Stallone leaned just enough to avoid it, countering with a precise jab that didn't land but tapped something deeper. A smile. Malik smirked. They danced, and suddenly it wasn't a kid fighting a legend. It was two fighters, two men, equal inside the ropes. Round 2. Sweat. Movement. Breathing in rhythm. Malik started loosening up, footwork sharper, eyes more focused, like for the first time in months. He felt alive. By round 3, the gym was still silent, but the air pulsed with energy. Stallone faked a cross, then paused. "Hey," he said mid-fight, "don't look at your feet. You ain't going nowhere." Malik chuckled, swung, missed. They clinched. And in that brief moment of contact, Stallone whispered something the cameras couldn't catch. When the final bell rang, both stood still, breathing heavy, gloves down. Then Stallone did something that made even Henry tear up. He took off his gloves, walked over to Malik, and with a slow, deliberate motion, pulled off the young man's gloves too. Then he reached for a towel and wiped the sweat from Malik's face. Gentle, respectful, like a father would after watching his son survive his first real storm. Then he embraced him, not like a coach, like a man who saw himself in someone no one else was seeing. Jaden stopped recording, hands shaking, heart racing. The gym didn't erupt. It didn't need to. Silence held more power than noise that day. But the world would find out in 24 hours. And Malik would never walk the same again. As Stallone walked toward the exit, he paused at the mural again. He stared into the painted eyes of Rocky, then turned to look at Malik, bruised, breathless, shining, and whispered, just loud enough for Jaden's mic to catch, "You reminded me of him today." The video hit TikTok at 7:12 p.m. By 8:00, it had 30,000 views. By midnight, it had passed 2 million. Jaden had edited nothing. He didn't need to. The rawness of it, Stallone stepping into the ring like a ghost from cinema, Malik rising like someone had lit a fire under his ribs, was enough. But what caught people wasn't the sparring. It was the towel, the embrace, the unsaid. This is what boxing's about. That hug. That was a whole life lesson. He didn't need to say a word. That's mentorship. The comments poured in, not just from fans, but from fathers, sons, coaches, and broken kids from every corner of the internet. But Malik hadn't seen it yet, because Malik didn't have Wi-Fi at home, or time. That night, he got off the bus, hoodie pulled tight, gym bag slung low. His legs ached, but his mind buzzed. His mother was already home. Shift 1 done. Dinner cold on the stove. Shift 2 coming in 4 hours. She sat at the small kitchen table, sorting receipts and unpaid bills like she was preparing for battle. He walked past her, silent. "Malik," she said without looking. "You eat? Later. You sparred today." He paused. "Yeah. With who?" A beat. He could have said some old guy. Could have said nobody. Could have said nothing. But instead, he said the truth. "Stallone." Now she looked up. "What?" "Yeah, like Rocky." She stared, trying to find sarcasm in his face. "You joking?" He shrugged. He said I reminded him of someone. She shook her head. Not in disbelief, in fatigue. "You need to stop playing with this dream, Malik. I know what you're chasing. But dreams don't pay rent." He clenched his jaw, not in anger, in heartbreak. "I'm not asking it to." She sighed. He walked to his room, dropped his bag, sat on the edge of his mattress. No posters, just a mirror with a crack down the middle. He looked at himself, sweat-streaked, swollen-lipped, still tasting leather from the sparring. Then his phone buzzed. "Jaden, yo, you seen this? Bro, you trending 3 million views already, ESPN reposted it." Stallone commented, "Champ in the making." Malik froze. His fingers hovered over the screen. He clicked the video. There he was, on the screen, fighting, laughing, breathing like he belonged. And at the end, that hug, that towel. He didn't cry. Not yet. The next morning, the gym was different. People he didn't know were waiting outside. A news van idled at the corner. Henry looked like he hadn't slept. "You okay?" Malik asked as he entered. Henry smiled. "Better than okay. You just gave this place 10 more years of life." Inside, the mural of Rocky had a new addition. Someone, probably Jaden, had added a fresh printed photo, taped right next to it. It was the frame of Stallone holding Malik's head after the fight. Below it, scribbled in Sharpie, "Legacy isn't fame, it's what you pass on." Malik stared at it. Stallone wasn't there that morning, but his absence said more than his presence. It said, "This was never about me." That afternoon, Henry made Malik sit down for a talk. "You know what I see when I look at you?" Malik shrugged. Henry leaned forward. "I see a kid who doesn't know he's already made it through rounds most people tap out of." He continued, voice low and gravelly. "You didn't quit when your dad left. You didn't quit when the lights went off last winter. You didn't quit when you lost 4 fights in a row. And you didn't quit yesterday." "I wanted to," Malik said quietly. "But you didn't." Silence. Henry tapped the table. "So now what?" Malik looked at him. "I don't know." Henry smiled. "Good. That means you're listening." That night, Stallone returned. No cameras, no hoodie this time. Just himself, and a pair of boxing shoes slung over his shoulder. Malik was finishing bag work when he entered. They didn't hug. Didn't need to. Stallone leaned on the ropes. "Video blew up." "I saw," Malik replied. "You okay with that?" "I think so." They were quiet for a while. The kind of silence that holds weight, not awkwardness. Then Stallone said, "You reminded me of me. Not Rocky. Me. The kid who used to get punched for $20 in a warehouse in Brooklyn. The kid who ate tuna from the can and slept in bus stations. You fight like it matters. That's rare." Malik looked away, uncomfortable. Stallone stepped closer. "I've played a lot of roles, been on a lot of screens, but nothing hits like a real moment." He took something from his duffel bag. A pair of red gloves. Old, worn, classic Everlast. He handed them to Malik. Across the thumb in silver marker, it read, "Lute como se ninguém estivesse vendo, porque às vezes estão." Malik held them like glass. "Portuguese?" he asked. Stallone smiled. "Brazilian kid I trained once. He taught me the phrase, thought it fit." Then he added, "And yeah, I knew this video would go viral, but what matters is why it did." "Why?" "Because people are tired of noise, of egos, of fakery. They want truth. You gave them that, not with your fists, but with how you stood up after taking a hit." Later that week, Stallone left town. Didn't announce it, didn't post, just disappeared the same way he arrived. Malik found a folded note in his locker. One line, "You don't need to be famous to be unforgettable." That weekend, during the community tournament, Malik stepped into the ring for a real match. It was packed, not with cameras, with neighbors, with his mom, with kids who'd never seen him smile, with people who didn't even like boxing, but felt like this moment belonged to all of them. He fought hard, won on points. But what broke the crowd wasn't the win, it was what happened after. As the ref raised his hand, Malik reached into his bag, pulled out Stallone's gloves, and raised them to the crowd, high over his head. Not as a trophy, as a torch. For a few weeks, everything felt different. The gym got a fresh coat of paint, donated by a local contractor who'd seen the viral video and wanted to help. Malik started training harder, not because someone told him to, but because, for the first time, he believed there was something worth training for. The kids around the neighborhood began showing up just to watch. Some picked up gloves, others picked up phones. But they were there, present, hopeful. Malik's mother started packing his gym bag with fruit and protein bars, quietly, without saying a word. She never apologized. She didn't need to. He felt it in the way she placed the towel neatly folded on top. The towel, Stallone's towel. The video had become more than a trend. It became a movement. It was reposted by mental health organizations, anti-violence campaigns, mentorship nonprofits. People stopped calling it that Stallone boxing clip and started calling it the hug. Some called it staged, some called it soft, but most called it real. And that's what made it dangerous, because not everyone liked real. One rainy morning, Henry handed Malik an envelope. A letter. Official, clean, no smudges. Malik stared at it, afraid to open. "What is it?" he asked. "Scholarship offer," Henry said, grinning. "From Glenridge Athletic Academy. Full ride, boxing program, academic tutoring, dorm room, the works." Malik blinked. "You serious?" "Dead serious. They saw the video. Did some digging, watched your matches. One of the scouts came in here last week in plain clothes." Malik sat down, letter trembling in his hand. "But it's not in Newark," Henry added. "Where?" "Upstate New York, few hours away. Clean campus, big opportunity. But they want you in by next week." Malik's heart dropped. The tournament, his mother, the gym, Jaden, the neighborhood. Everything here was finally starting to feel right. He walked home that day slower than usual. The streets looked the same, but something about the silence felt louder. At home, his mother wasn't there. She'd picked up an extra shift. Again. He sat at the table, letter still sealed, and just stared. An hour later, Jaden came bursting in without knocking, something he never used to do. "Bro!" he yelled. "You trending again?" Malik didn't even flinch. "This new thing, it's everywhere. A teacher in Detroit showed it in her classroom. Some ex-boxer in Brazil made a reaction video. And get this." Jaden stopped when he saw Malik's face. "You good?" Malik slid the letter across the table. Jaden read it. "Dude, this is huge." "I know. So, what's the problem?" Malik didn't answer right away. Then he said, "What if I don't belong there?" Jaden frowned. "What? What if I get there and they realize I'm not what they thought? What if I don't fit in with those kids who've been training in facilities their whole life? What if I'm just a viral moment?" Jaden leaned forward. "You think Stallone hugged a viral moment? You think your mom packs your bag every morning for a meme?" Malik looked away. "You belong anywhere you choose to be," Jaden added, "but especially there." 3 days later, the gloves were stolen. It happened in broad daylight. The gym was packed. A youth camp had come by. Someone slipped in, cracked the locker, and vanished with Stallone's gloves before anyone noticed. Panic, fury, confusion. Henry locked the place down, but they were gone. The photo on the wall, the one of the hug, had been torn off. Jaden was livid. This was someone trying to make a buck. Bet they're already online. Malik said nothing. He sat on the edge of the ring, staring at the empty locker like it was a grave. Then his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Heard you got offered Glenridge. Don't forget who you are when you get there." Attached was a photo. The gloves. On a dusty wooden table. Somewhere dark, somewhere cold. And written on the inside of one wrist, in new black marker, "You don't need symbols to be someone." No signature. No location. Just the message. Henry believed it was Stallone. Jaden wasn't sure. Malik? He didn't know what to believe, but something in his chest shifted. Maybe the gloves were never the point. Maybe the hug wasn't either. Maybe what mattered was what happened after the lights went off, after the noise faded, after the proof was stolen. The Glenridge deadline loomed. Malik hadn't decided. He hadn't told his mom. Until one night, the night before the final local tournament, he came home to find her waiting. A hot plate of food, fresh, not reheated. She was wearing her old jacket, the one from when he was 10. "I got called into HR today," she said quietly. Malik froze. "What happened?" "They said someone paid my debt, all of it, from when I was out sick. They said it was a donation." He blinked. "Who?" "They didn't say. But the lady smiled. Said I must have raised someone important." She pushed the plate to. "So I cooked." Malik couldn't speak. She added, I heard about Glenridge, he nodded. I want you to go. He hesitated. I don't want to leave you, she smiled. You leaving is the reason I did all this. You staying for me would undo it. That night he packed. The gloves never went into just the towel. The next morning, the morning of the final tournament, Malik arrived early. The gym was quiet. Only one person there, Stallone. Standing by the mural. No words, just the gloves, placed gently on the corner of the ring. Returned. No explanation, no fanfare. And on the wall, next to the photo Jaden had reprinted and retaped, a new message. It was never about the gloves. Malik fought that day like he had nothing to prove. Because finally he didn't. He didn't win. But he didn't need to. What he earned couldn't be placed on a podium. He said goodbye to Henry, to Jaden, to the gym, to Newark. He boarded the bus that evening with nothing but a bag, a dream, and the towel folded neatly inside. As the city disappeared behind him, Malik looked out the window and whispered to himself, "Fight like no one's watching." Glenridge didn't feel like Newark. The air was too clean, the buildings too polished, the people too distant. But Malik didn't flinch. He walked onto campus with the same duffel bag slung over his shoulder, the towel folded neatly inside, and a stare that came from somewhere deeper than most kids his age knew existed. Coaches welcomed him with firm handshakes. Teammates gave the polite nods that only strangers use. But none of that fazed him. He wasn't there to impress anyone. He was there to honor the journey. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Malik trained harder than anyone else. Not louder, just harder. He stayed after practice. He shadowboxed before dawn. He took losses, but studied every frame of them like they were treasure maps. He smiled when he bled, laughed when he stumbled, because failure no longer scared him. He'd already won something far greater. Still, Glenridge wasn't home. Not yet. He missed the noise of the gym in Newark, the way Henry grunted with every uppercut thrown, the smell of old leather and dust, Jaden yelling random sound effects behind his phone, his mother folding the towel like it was sacred. Most of all, he missed the silence after the sparring match, the silence that said more than words ever could. On a windy afternoon in March, Malik got mail. A box. No return address, just a red R on the corner, spray painted in quick strokes. He opened it in his dorm. Inside, a notebook, thick, bound in leather. On the first page, handwritten in a slanted, familiar scrawl, "You reminded me of him, so I thought I'd show you what he was really thinking." It was a journal. Stallone's journal. Notes, drafts, observations about life, struggle, ego, and silence. Reflections from film sets. Lines that never made it to screen. Sketches of gloves, of faces, of gyms long gone. And midway through, a page with one sentence circled in red ink. "The loudest victories happen in the quietest moments." Malik closed the book and cried, not because of the gesture, but because of what it meant. He was seen. Still, even now, even far away. A few weeks later, Glenridge hosted a charity event, open to the public, streamed live. Malik was set to spar in the headline match. Not a real fight, just showmanship, technique, controlled intensity. But for Malik, this one meant more. Because for the first time since arriving, his mother would be watching. She'd taken the bus, worn her best jacket, sat in the front row like it was the Oscars. Jaden was there too, credentials around his neck, upgraded from cracked phone to Canon DSLR, courtesy of a local donor. The gymnasium buzzed. The bell rang. And Malik danced. Not with cockiness, with clarity. Every move spoke. Every dodge remembered something. Every jab whispered to the boy he used to be. Then something unexpected happened. In round 2, the sparring partner clipped him with a clean hook. Not intentional. Just one of those moments that sneaks past your guard and humbles your jaw. Malik hit the mat. Gasps filled the gym. His mother stood up. Jaden dropped the camera. The ref rushed over. But Malik stayed still, just for a second, eyes closed. Then, he smiled, and sat up, and laughed. He rose to his feet, raised a glove to the crowd, and nodded to the ref that he was fine. The match ended a few minutes later. Nobody cared who won. Everyone remembered what they saw. That night, after the crowd cleared, Malik sat alone on the edge of the ring. His mother walked over, holding something. It was the towel. She hadn't brought it before. She'd waited. Now she handed it to him. He took it, folded it again, as if honoring a ritual. Then he looked up at her. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "I didn't get it before. Why you fought? Do you now?" She smiled. "You're not fighting to be someone. You're fighting because you already are." He laughed softly. "That sounded like something out of his notebook." "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe you're just finally listening." Months passed. Malik kept training. He lost matches. He won others. He started helping younger students, giving tips, spotting footwork flaws, holding mitts, whispering encouragement. One day, a new kid, shy, nervous, barely 16, was shadowboxing in the corner, punching too fast, too sloppy. Malik walked over, didn't say a word, just stepped in, adjusted his stance, slowed his arms, raised his chin, and at the end of the round, handed the kid a towel. The same one. The towel. A few weeks later, Stallone passed away, quietly, at home, surrounded by family. News broke like thunder. Tributes poured in from around the world. Clips, quotes, awards, red carpets, Hall of Fames. But the clip that resurfaced everywhere wasn't from Hollywood. It was from Newark. The hug, the towel, the boy, and a line. The line. "You reminded me of him today." At Glenridge, Malik watched the news in silence. Then he pulled out the journal, turned to the back. There was one last note, folded, taped to the cover, written in the same hand. "You ever feel lost? Just remember, I was never acting." Malik returns to Newark years later. He's older, broader, slower, but sharper, clearer. He walks into the same gym. The mural's still there. But now, beside Rocky and the famous hug photo, a new painting, Malik. Gloves raised, eyes forward, no fear. He walks up to it, rests his palm on the shoulder of the painted version of himself, and says, almost to no one, "He was just a kid, but something in his eyes told me. He'd already survived more fights than I ever did. Fight like no one's watching, because sometimes they are." Thank you so much for watching. Your time means everything to us, and we hope this story moved you as much as it moved us. If it did, please consider leaving a comment, sharing the video, and subscribing to the channel, because powerful stories deserve to be heard. Until next time, stay kind, stay strong, and never underestimate the impact of one small act of courage.